In this video, we're going to be taking a look at what Command Professional can do for you, as well as a general idea of some of its basic capabilities. So first things first, when you first start up Command, you're going to be introduced to this little handy-dandy little menu here, where we have a bunch of different options ranging from starting a new game, to doing a quick battle, to doing some campaigns, loading saved games, creating a new scenario, or editing scenarios, or even leaving the actual scenario. Note, if you ever run into trouble with Command, the email that you will need for tech support is listed right on this page. So to demonstrate what Command can do, we're going to set up a very, very basic scenario, run through the scenario, and then take a look at some of the data outputted from the actual scenario itself. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I want to go ahead and make sure that everything is set up as far as my database has. Now, inside of Command, you have two major databases. You have what they call the Cold War database, which goes up through 1979, and you also have the modern database called the DB3000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Use the Latest. I'm going to go ahead and establish the time for the scenario. We'll go make this 2020. We'll do 06. We'll go ahead and say that it's 9:30 in the morning. Of course, this is going to be UTC. Keep that in mind. So that'll be different than the local time we're going to be operating at. And we're going to say this takes place at the NTTR. Now, what I'm going to do is create a couple sides. Let's go ahead and create, I'll call one blue, and let's create the other one red. Just keep things nice and simple. I'll go ahead and establish their postures as being somewhat hostile towards each other to simplify things. And now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and set the quality of these individual units. The blue unit, I'm going to assume that they've got some battlefield experience and they're fairly well trained, so I'm going to set them in regular. For red, I'm going to go ahead and reduce them down to cadet training, which basically means they know how to use their equipment, but they're not necessarily going to be absolutely perfect at it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and establish my actual location here. I'll go ahead and adjust my view real quickly, and to actually import some unit that we can use for the purposes of demonstrating what we can do with Command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go up to Import, Export Units, Load Units. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Keep in mind these all ship with Command, so all these will be available at all times, and you can always create your own. We'll have a video a little later on explaining exactly what you can do with them. So go over to Nevada. I'm going to go ahead and grab this mock airbase here. Go ahead and load that one in, and you can see it generates a target for us deep here in the desert. So what I'm going to do with this little mock airbase is I'm going to go ahead and populate it with some extra units as well. And we'll start by adding some aircraft. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this one up. We'll throw in some of those MiG-28s here real quick. We'll do some 5Es. We'll call them DACT. We'll add 24 of these. We'll also go ahead and throw in some, you know what? We'll do some J5s as well. All right, nice. And we're going to assume for the purposes of the scenario that each one of these units were in the process of basically arming. Oh, we just want to change one little realism setting real quick to make sure that that works properly. There we are. And again, we'll have videos later on explaining what each one of these items do. The purpose of this video, again, is just to show you what you can, the kind of different reports that you can get from it. So I'm going to go ahead and ask them to be armed. I'm going to come over to this group here. I'm also going to ask this group to be armed as well. Awesome. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my little setup here. And obviously, if you have an airbase, there's going to be some kind of air defense around it. I can see a couple spots where we have some revetments basically sitting around, which seem to be logical places to put some kind of air defense. I'm going to go ahead and insert a couple of units here. I'm going to grab right here. We'll top in everybody's favorite SAM system. SA2 will do it. I should make sure it's set to facility. SA2 will do an F model, and we'll go ahead and say it's a good old-fashioned PVO version. We'll go ahead and throw an SA3 here on the far side as well. We'll do a B model. Let's see, we'll go ahead and grab the classic version here. We'll say this country. Again, all these units are available pretty much right from the beginning. That one looks pretty good right there. I'll go ahead and throw in some kind of battalion radar here for the purposes of keeping an eye on things. We'll do a P19, it's pretty classic. We'll say this one right here, and I'm also going to select that P19 and turn it on, so that way it's going to be operating at all times. Keep in mind these units by default do not activate their radars, but we'll be covering that in a later video as well. All right, let's go ahead and sprinkle in a little bit of a AAA as well, just again to kind of round things off. Remember, this is just an example of what we can do. There's many more things we'll take a look at in the later videos as well. So let's see here. We'll grab a couple of 57 millimeters here. We'll throw one on pretty much on each side. I'm just using my clone command to quickly bang them out, and we instantly have a target in less than 5 minutes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the other side, Blue Forces. We're going to go all the way out here to Los Angeles, California, and basically what we're going to do is set ourselves up a teeny tiny little kind of carrier battle group here that we're going to use for the purpose of the scenario. So we'll go up to surface ship, go ahead and add ourselves, we'll go with the Theodore Roosevelt here. We'll do the 2020 version. We'll go ahead and grab this one. We'll go ahead and equip it with some units here. Since it's a modern scenario, we'll kind of go pretty traditional here. We'll do with F-35s. Of course, we want to make sure we pick the one that we're actually going to be using here. We'll assume we're using Navy F-35s. We're in 2020, so we're going to be using this version right here. We'll add 12 of those. We'll also grab some F-18Es. And we'll go ahead and grab ourselves some F-18Fs. And we'll also get ourselves some support aircraft as well. We'll go ahead and sort them automatically by date so we can get the most recent version that we have at our disposal. That's going to be the E2D. We'll go ahead and add ourselves 4 of those. And that gets us a pretty good setup for our little carrier group here. We'll modify the loadouts in just a minute. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some escorts here. I can see that I'm going to go ahead and throw some together. We'll go ahead and get a Ticonderoga class. And let's see here. We'll go ahead and organize this by date again. 2018, we'll get the Lake Erie. We'll also go ahead and get ourselves a DDG. Let's do, the Zumwalt will be an interesting choice here. We'll grab the Maya. Oh, that's Japan. Sorry. We'll grab the Dewey. And we'll go ahead and add ourselves an AO. Make sure it's a fairly mucent one. That looks pretty good right there. And now we have ourselves our little kind of battle group. Again, total time to build this entire battle group is only minutes. Go ahead and group this group together, and I'm going to go ahead and assign it a formation. Let's go ahead and go with a column formation, be a little traditional. We'll say they're 1 nautical miles apart, and they're facing, let's say, roughly 315 degrees. And you can see it automatically populates them, and they're ready to go. We'll set them on an initial heading. They're basically going to kind of cruise around here, not do anything too crazy. All right, that's looking pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and save this scenario real quickly, just in case something comes up. And now my scenario is ready for the purposes of testing. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly pause and unpause so we can have a pretty good idea of where our targets are. Now I notice that my targets are about 235 nautical miles away. So when I'm planning my missions for this one, I'm going to have to keep that in the back of my head. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. We're going to be doing a traditional alpha strike here. So we're going to be throwing the entire carrier deck at them. So my F-18Es, I'm going to make these mostly concentrate on the purposes of any sort of suppression of enemy air defenses. So we'll go ahead and get them some air weapons for that purpose. We have the AARGM. That sounds pretty good. We also want to be very cognizant of our range limitations. Of course, we could set up refueling, but again, that'll be a video a little later on as well. Go ahead and grab this group real quickly. And we're going to see the F-35s. These are going to be my primary strikers. So we're going to go and equip them with the GBU-32s. We're going to grab my second group of F-18Fs. And the purpose of these, they're going to be a kind of a split between just about everything, but we're going to have them provide us with any of the combat air patrol that we're going to require. Let's make sure that works. All right, looks good. So those will be my sets of escorts. These will be my strikers. And of course, we'll use the E2s. I generally only have 2 of them available at any given time. So we'll go ahead and activate them quickly. And we're going to go say that these 2 are sitting in maintenance at the current moment. All right, so now we're just going to set up a quick little mission. Again, this is all taking place. I'm going to save everything we have so far. And then we're going to show you how you can use this stuff later on as well. So there's a couple different things I could use against these 2 known SAM sites. We could, of course, launch cruise missiles at them. But again, we're going to be fairly traditional on this one today. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm simply going to select my target region. I'm going to go ahead and order up a strike mission. Again, there'll be detailed scenarios explaining how to do this a little later on. So we'll go ahead and add new mission. Call it Strike 1. Call it a land strike because that's the type of mission it is. And we're going to grab every one of the different aircraft we have at our disposal here, which looks pretty good. I'm not going to worry about that too much. Whoops, we accidentally grabbed the Hawkeyes. We don't need those. All right, I'm going to mark these as escorts. I'm going to mark these as escorts as well, meaning they will basically fly alongside and attack anything that attacks my primaries here. So my primary group here, I'm going to do a fairly large group. So we're going to do 2 groups of 6 in order to keep them fairly tight. My escorts, I'm going to keep them in groups of 4, again, to keep them relatively tightly grouped as well. Again, making things a little bit simpler for us today. Taking a look at my missions here, that's basically what I'm hoping. The runways are going to be my last targets here, so I'm not going to stress about them. And I'm not going to specifically attack the SA2s. I could in a separate mission, but again, this is just for the purposes of an example. I can even order them to do an off-axis attack. One thing I will do here, though, is I'll double check to make sure tankers are good and radar usage. I'm going to turn on the radar from our attack leg in case we have some issues as far as weather when we get there. Everything's all set. Everything looks good. Minimum number. We're going to not do an enforced flight size, and either one of these is just going to make my life a little bit simpler. Okay, with that all set up, that mission is now ready to roll. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and establish a quick little support mission for E2s. Again, I'm just creating a really basic mission here for the purposes of showing what you can do. We'll call this E2. I'll call it AWACS. Why not? Set this as a support mission. Oh, not a ferry mission. Again, there'll be detailed videos on this explaining how each one. I only need 1 of these in the air at a time, and I'm also going to make sure that when it does get airborne, that it turns its radar on automatically. That way, it goes ahead and provides us with any information as far as enemy launch activity or anything like that. All this information looks good to me. This information looks good to me. This information looks good to me. You can see that it's drawn it on the map and gotten it all ready for us to go. So now there's a couple different things we can do here. First of all, I want to limit the time of our scenario. We only probably need about 2 hours for this one. We'll do 2 hours, 30 minutes, no days. Press OK. Press File Save. Now, what I could do is I could go ahead and unpause this scenario, and I'll kind of let it take its course, which I'm going to do. We'll do some time acceleration. You can see all my aircraft launch. Notice several of them have picked up brand new contacts as we start to approach. Let me declutter my screen a little bit here. I'm going to assume all these targets are hostile, making things a little bit easier for us. Strikers are cruising in. They've already launched their standoff weapons, which I can see from here are mostly targeted on the early warning radars. Obviously, if you can disable the early warning radar early, it's going to make this whole scenario much, much simpler. And quite a bit of damage there already. Here comes the next round of standoff weapons. These are all the GBUs. These are from the F-35s. And meanwhile, there's a bunch more of the anti-radiation missiles arriving as well to engage the SAM sites that engage themselves when we got too close to it. Oh, and we have done quite a job. Last but not least, we have our last group of F-35s closing into range. They're deploying their GBUs as well. And of course, we have one of our escort aircraft in the front, pretty much keeping an eye on everything that's going on the ground. Looks like that's been a pretty successful strike so far. I'll wait for this group over here to come rolling in. Oh yeah, that was very, 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 very efficient. All right, so that is our strike. So at the conclusion of our strike, of course, now I can come up to losses and expenditures and measure just how much effectiveness we had in this particular scenario. I can see I went through a spectacular number of these, plenty of GPUs, plenty of standoff weapons. On the flip side, as far as what we traded for those, we got a significant number of the aircraft, a significant amount of their special stuff. We can also see exactly what they've lost or what they fired at us as well. Now, what makes this particular version of command so effective is we can do the scenario as we just did here and control the individual units, or we can actually pass this on for a specialized analysis. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead to the editor, Monte Carlo Analysis, and we're going to set this exact same scenario up as we just did a moment ago. And we're then going to go ahead and save it as a, basically, if you want to imagine, it's going to run itself. But we can actually export a significant amount of data from that particular one. I'm going to export a CSV. I'm also going to export a TAC view as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just run the scenario. So what this is going to do is it's going to simulate the scenario in the background using all the different items that I did. Now that that scenario has finished running through the Monte Carlo, it now gives us a special folder inside of our command PE where we can now see results of that particular scenario. One of the items I can see is different CSVs broken down by units destroyed, weapons fired. It also gives me a complete 3D simulation of anything from using a TAC view through using SimDis as well. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and take one of these different items and load it up into some of my data analysis software as an example. Go ahead and close this down for just a minute so you can take a better look. And you can see that I can do some quick analysis on it, and it breaks everything down by individual time unit, by individual unit. It even will give me key elements like how much fuel I've consumed, the different types of fuel. And now just running some quick analysis here, I can identify immediately kind of what uses what and make some very, very solid estimations for the efficacy of my battle plan that I've generated. In addition to the data, we can also take a look at a 3D view using either TAC view, or you can use one of the DIS systems as well. In this case, we can take a look at everything we just did in a 3D view and kind of understand exactly how events unfolded, as well as all the different data output that we have. Once we've finished analyzing our scenario, we can then go back and make small little changes to it, either dynamically or using a powerful engine for the purposes of using Lua, in order to see different effects of different items that you could try in your scenario. Now, if you have multiple servers at your disposal, you can run a command line version of command as well. It gives you the ability to run these scenarios very, very quickly, very, very efficiently, very, very rapidly, trying every possible permutation.